Hello everyone and welcome to another video where we will start talking about in today's session about data recovery. So we'll cover the basics, and one of the important things is that when a file gets deleted, it's usually not completely wiped from the drive, depending, by the way, on the media. In today's session, we are going to focus, let's say, on thumb drives, which are drives like a USB drive that you use to copy files from one system to another, or share files between computers. So in those cases, when a file gets deleted, the file, unless that location on the thumb drive gets overwritten, the file is still there, so we can still recover that. So what we did in this session, or for this session, is we created 4 data sets. Each one of them will cover a different scenario to show how we can do data recovery or file recovery from a thumb drive, even if the data has been deleted. Now, think of it like this. We have a scenario where we have a suspect. The suspect is using a thumb drive to store, let's say, images, and then the suspect goes and deletes those images. Now, can I recover those files back? Yes, unless they were wiped properly, and unless, let's say, the images which were stored on that thumb drive have now been overwritten. So if they have been overwritten, so like the suspect went and copied new files onto the thumb drives, and now the location that was used before for that file has been now used again, then the file is kind of now gone. It will require probably complicated scenarios to recover it. So that's and that's out of scope, because most probably we are going to be talking about like hardware level data recovery. But if we are doing software level data recovery, basically just think of it like this. If we have a file and that file is stored in some location, when we go delete the file, what we really are doing is we are deleting the pointers, or let's say whatever we have as a lead telling me, oh, the file is located in this place, and this is how I can go and then access it. So the file, once you delete it, it's still there unless that location on the drive has now been overwritten. And again, we are talking about thumb drives or drives that are using like a mechanical like system. So like our hard disk drives, not SSDs and not NVMEs. We'll talk about those probably in another video, but in today's video, we are going to focus on thumb drive. So we have a suspect. The suspect is kind of storing some illicit photos or illegal photos on the thumb drive, and then the suspect kind of was alerted that, let's say the suspect just wanted to kind of cover his tracks, so he goes, he deletes those files. Now we are going to again talk about multiple scenarios, how we can still do recovery in those scenarios. Another case might come to mind is, let's say, not just for let's say someone is a suspect storing some illegal photos, but it also could sometimes be used as a method, like deleting a file could also be used as a method of exfiltration. So think of it like this. We have an organization where, let's say, they kind of check thumb drives when a user comes in, when a user goes out, or let's say they kind of want to prohibit using of thumb drives, but they don't do that completely. So on the hardware side, they are kind of not completely blocked. So I can still use a USB, but probably when I'm going out of the organization, my USB is getting checked. So what they can do, what the suspect can probably do, is they can write some data to the USB or the thumb drive, and then they can delete it. And then when they go back home or whatever, they can go and do data recovery and get those files back. So if someone's going to check that volume or check that drive using normal methods, then the file, there is nothing there, so it's empty. But then when the user goes back home, they can quickly and easily recover those files back. So let's go ahead and talk about today's cases. Excuse me. So the what we do, by the way, is we use these images to represent our illicit photos. So these are photos of, we use kittens. And again, because by the way, it's not right to use illegal photos because that's against the law. So make sure you don't use some illegal photos like pornography or like child pornography, because these are probably like the cases that you'll need this for, to kind of like create data sets. Even if it's a data set for training purposes, it's still against the law. So don't do that. So what we do is we use kittens. You can use dogs. You can use whatever you want, except don't use images which might cause some problems to you, or like law problems, and put you in some problem. So again, we have these images. These are the ones that we copied to our volumes, okay, and we want to recover them. So we created 4 case studies. Case study number 1 is a USB where the user went and actually deleted the files. Now, one important thing is on a Windows system, when we go and just delete the file, that file ends up in the recycle bin. So we can easily just go to the recycle bin and restore the file back. But if a user, let's say if we have a user who then goes and does Shift+Delete, so let's say we have a file. So we have a file, whatever that file is, by the way, and then a user goes and does Shift+Delete. As you can see, we get this message that is going to be permanently deleted. Okay, when a user does that, that bypasses the recycle bin. That's no longer in the recycle bin. But can I retrieve that? The answer is yes, and we're going to prove that. So USB number 1 is about that. Let's go ahead and mount the USB so we can do our data recovery. So I'm going to use Arsenal Image Mounter, which is one of the best tools out there for mounting evidence. And again, think of this as we have the USB, we image the USB, and now we want to recover the files back from this USB. So I'm going to go and mount the USB number 1. I prefer to use disk write temporary. It's really up to you. We might not need this, by the way, in this case. So it's really up to you. We'll do multiple different methods. So number 1, I'm going to do this. I'm going to store my difference file on the desktop. Okay. And then, so now it has been saved. It has been mounted, excuse me. So if I go and open the drive, I can't see anything in there. There's nothing, right? There's no files. If we also check the properties, we can see that use space is 24 K bytes, and usually those are for like the data structures which are being used, and then everything else is the free space. We have 8 gigabytes. So it's an 8 gigabyte USB drive, and there is nothing on the USB drive. And if we look at this, we can't see anything. We can't recover it. Now we can do 2 things. One is we can go to FTK Imager. We're going to do 2 ways to do this. And we can go and add the evidence. So we can say we have an image. We can also do physical, by the way, because we've mounted it. So we can do this, finish. And we can look at the, we can go here and we can see the images, by the way. See the images? They are there. Even though they are marked as deleted, they are there. So even if we were looking at the USB here, we can't see anything in there because they are deleted. But in a toolkit like FTK Imager, we can easily see that. And now I can just right-click and export and recover the file. Now, if I go ahead and, by the way, also just to show you, mount the image, it's going to be really the same thing. So if we go to USB 1 and finish, it's really going to be the same thing. But just in case you want, you were asking, we can go here. We can see these are the images in there. Now we can do again, just right click and then export these files, and then there we go. So I'm going to do that quickly. So let's go and let's create a directory on the desktop, probably say discovery. Okay, and maybe say USB1, because we have 4 of them and each one represents a different scenario. So if we go now to the desktop, recovery, USB1, we can see we have our images. And now, by the way, if we want to also check them, I know this is not going to be in a case, probably because you don't know what you are recovering. But if we want to check, let's say this one, the hash for it, so probably like quickly, SHA-1 for this. And let's see if we got the same one, SHA-1 for this. We can see that they are exactly the same. So we got an exact same match. Okay, so this is just one way for doing this, and this was for case number 1. So let's go ahead and let's actually create USB 2 and then USB 3, and also probably, just since we are doing this, USB 4. Now in USB 2, so let's go ahead and unmount this, remove all of them. I'm also going to remove it from here. In USB 2, the case is different. The case this time is different because what happened in this case is the user went ahead, and what they did is they formatted the drive. So they formatted the drive, but still, if I open the drive, I can't see anything there. There's nothing there, so I can still see nothing in there. And if we go ahead and mount or add it to, let's say, FTK Imager, so let's go do that and check it out. Go to partition and go to root. We can't see this time anything in there. If we go to the unallocated space, by the way, we can see there is something. Excuse me. If we check, these are all unallocated space, by the way, on the USB. We can see here that there is something, but it's not appearing as a file over here. Okay, so let's now look at a different tool to do this recovery for us. So there is a good tool called PhotoRec, which is part of TestDisk. So if we start, let's use the GUI version, especially it's easier for you at the beginning. When you master this, you'll probably can easily use the command line version. So if we go ahead, PhotoRec is, and this is like I said, the GUI version of it. We can use this to kind of do data recovery from files, from volumes and corrupted disks. And again, this is in our case today, we are using the basics. So when we'll make things more complicated as we move further. This is the physical drive that we want, which is our 8 gigabyte USB. Now, what we can do is we can do whole disk. So we can try to attempt data recovery or file recovery from the whole disk or just from the partition. It's really up to you. As you can see, PhotoRec can automatically detect the file system being used on that volume. So it can automatically detect that, and we want to kind of try and attempt to recover the files from this whole disk. Now, another thing that the file formats, if you want to select what do you want to do recovery, so you could probably unselect all of these, like you can remove them, uncheck, and then probably like if we are interested in recovering JPEG files, so make sure the JPG file is there. And then we'll also later on show how can we do our own custom signature. So again, you can select this, and with that, you will be able to do recovery based on what type of signature are we looking for. These are the defaults, and as you can see, these are the ones that are selected. If you don't need, for example, iTunes, you can go and unselect that if you want. Just do that, and so on and so forth. There are other tools, by the way, but this is a great tool, and it's a great free tool, not just a great tool, it's also free. So let's say, where do we want to restore we want to use recovery, and we said we're going to use USB 2. And now if we hit search, this is going to now start searching. As you can see, it found 7 headers, 7 out of 10 headers found, and it's doing some search on the drive. So let's wait until this finishes, and it will save the results in our USB2 directory as RECUP underscore dir number 1. And then if you do it again, it's going to be number 2, and so on and so on. So let's wait. So now it's attempting the recovery. 5 files found. Let's see what they are. We can see there's a JPEG, 4 JPEG files, and then there is this kind of probably like TXT file or TX, whatever. Let's wait until this is finished, and then we'll go and see were we able to recover the files from a drive that was formatted. So let's say the drive had a FAT32 file system, excuse me, and then the drive was then later on formatted with a FAT32 file system. So again, this is done. Now we can say quit. We go to the directory. We can see we have our images back. And this is the text file that was found. That's why it was a text file. So it's just these shell items or shell, which you usually find in directories. So we were able to recover the files completely, even though the volume was formatted. Now, I do want to show quickly. So if we do open 010 editor, and if I say file open drive, and if we open the drive named Canon, open. So you might say, how is that possible? Like, how is this possible that the data in there, even though when we formatted the drive, was still there? How is that possible? The reason is, by the way, because when we do a format of the drive, especially, by the way, when you go ahead and let's say this is the volume and say format, and then have this option as quick format, what this really does, it's gonna go and reset or configure these data structures for the volume. So it's gonna really go and do the configuration for the file system or the settings for the file system or install the file system data structures on the volume. It's not gonna go ahead and in like uh, uh, the data in there, none of this is gonna be intact. None of this, by the way, is gonna be not this one. So if we have, let's say, uh, images. Yeah, so probably like this, or maybe this is still the data structure. Yeah, we can do quickly, probably do a quick search to go in the idea again. Probably should have did. Let me pause this until this finishes the search. Okay, so what I did quickly, by the way, because it really takes a lot of time, the search, I probably would have done that, is I know the signature for like the JPG files, so I just kind of went and searched for them. And the goal here really was to just show you that the file is still there. So even though we wiped the drive, or I mean not wipe, sorry, even if we formatted the drive, we can see the data still there, because really what happened is the format just went and reset these couple of like blocks at the beginning of the drive, but nothing else. So everything else on the drive was not intact. So we were able to easily recover the files from there. So that's case number 2. Let's go ahead and look at case number 3. I'm going to remove this again. Okay. And then let's count case 3. Again, we can leave everything like it is, and we open the drive. We can see that there is nothing there. And if we use FTK Imager, and go to the volume, we can see that there is nothing there. Now, in this third scenario, what we did is we also had the USB with those images, assuming the images or pretending or simulating again that these are illegal photos or some photos of, let's say, child pornography or whatever. And then those photos are now have been deleted. But this time, the way they were deleted is the USB has now been formatted with a different file system. So let's say the USB had a FAT32 file system, and now the USB got formatted with an NTFS file system. Now, even with that being done, as you can see, this will create a lot of files because the NTFS kind of way of the NTFS file system is a lot more complicated and complex file system than a FAT32 or a FAT file system. So, and everything in it is a file. So as you can see, it created lots of different files. But still, with that being said and with that being done, uh, these files will have, some of them will have certain locations on the volume and some of them will not. Now, if you are lucky enough, you will still be able to retrieve some of the data which is on these on this thumb drive, even though we created a new file system, and this file system also created a new files or more files on the drive. So again, if we go back to the idea, if we have a file, it gets deleted, it's still there as long as no file has been overwritten. Now, when we created a new file system, which is the NTFS one, everything in the NTFS is a file. So there is a probability and a chance that some of those files have now been overwritten with the file systems file. Okay, but still, we might be able to retrieve some data. So let's go ahead and give it a try. So in this case, what we're going to do, again, I'm going to use PhotoRec, but the GUI version, and go to the drive. So the drive, which is this one, we can again either select the volume or the whole disk. It's really going to be depending on what you're doing. In this case, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to store the results in recovery USB 3. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to leave everything the same and do the search. So again, do the search. As you can see, it says 5 files were found. And again, this is because the USB probably was like recently created. The new file system was recently created. But even if someone is using this method to kind of like exfiltrate data, or they kind of to hide, cover their tracks and hide whatever they had on the USB or the thumb drive, we can still get those files back. And as you can see here, we are able to get the same files back. So if we go quick, and if we go to our USB number 3 and the same directory, and we can see we have the files, all of the files back. Okay, we have all of the files back in here. So let's go ahead now and look at case number 4. Now, case number 4, the files have been deleted or actually wiped using SDelete. Now, SDelete makes sure that they have been securely deleted. So this time, we should not be able to retrieve these files, but we can probably, if this volume, so this is an NTFS volume, okay? What we did here is we created an NTFS volume. Actually, not this one, probably. So this is a FAT32 volume. We do have another one, which is an NTFS volume, and let's double check this. So if we go here, Okay. So and actually let's continue to do this. Then we'll do case number 5. Then I'll just pause the video and add a case number 5. So SDelete in this case, by the way, was using an NTFS volume. If we go there, we can see these files they have been securely deleted with, and the data or the allocations have been gibberish data has been added to that. Now, when you see, by the way, these like naming convention, I would say this is a sign of SDelete being used, because of the way SDelete works is, let's say we have a file called abc.txt. What it will do is it will go rename the file the first time with aaa.aaa, and then the next file bbb.bbb, and so on and so forth, until it reaches the end of the alphabetic letters, which is zzz. Okay, so in this case we can see that the content here is we can see that there were files, but these files have been deleted. Let's go ahead and see if we can recover them. Let's go ahead and see if it is secure enough. With it says it's secure, right? But let's go ahead and see, can we really recover anything from this drive or not? So do the search. It says 3 headers found, but again, this is doing some search based on, so it could be wrong, by the way, because we'll see when we get to the headers part, when we create our own header. So it's probably going to be nice that we are going to cover a 5th case study in this one. One of them is going to be, again, which is this. The 4th one is still a FAT32 file system. But in the case number 5, which we created, is an NTFS file system. And if the NTFS has a journal activated on it, then we can use the journal to find out what was there on the volume. Now, we can't use it to recover probably those files, but we could probably use it to know what was on the volume. Okay, so keep that in mind. We can use it not to do recovery, but at least to know what was on this volume. So let's wait for this to finish. As you can see, so far, nothing was found except this txt file. So let's close it. And if we go to our cases, so recovery number 4, we can see that just the txt file. And this is probably, by the way, because that txt file was not actually wiped. The only files that were wiped, let's do number 5, is actually the images that the user wanted to hide the track. Okay, so let's remove all of this. I'm going to pause the video to get the 5th case that we're going to be working. Okay, so let's go ahead and now work on the case number 5. So if we go to our put them, yep, case number 5, again, add it. But this time, if we look at the volume, this is an NTFS volume. And again, if we assume the NTFS volume has the journal activated, so let's go ahead, and we really did that just because we are going to give this to you as like an extra mile for you to do. And we'll cover how to do it in future videos. But in today's video, this is going to be your extra mile to go ahead and find what were the names of the files that were deleted on this volume. And if we go there, so if we go here, we can see we have those files, which these, and again, this is a sign of SDelete being used. But if we go to the extended directory and the USN journal, we double click on it, we can see we have some data in there. So this is where you will probably be need to work on. But this is, again, this is going to be an extra mile not covered in here. But let's go ahead and see, can we really recover anything from this as well? So again, a PhotoRec, going to use that and get the volume of the drive, and we're going to save our data recovery in the USB 5. and do this, then do the search again. Let's see if we can find anything within this drive that was securely deleted using SD. Now again, this should not work because again, SDelete is really doing secure delete. So as you saw, the content of the file has been overwritten with gibberish data. So this is gibberish data, by the way, and we should not be able to recover the file from this over here. Even if we go to unallocated space, by the way, we still can see that this is all the gibberish data, but we won't be able to recover the file from there. Now, one thing I will add in the future in other videos is why I prefer Arsenal Image Mounter, because as you can see here, all of these unallocated disk space, these are all, like you can see, they are being kind of divided into blocks or let's say spaces of 100 and something or less. It depends really. But what Arsenal Image Mounter can do is kind of combine all of them for you in one single file, which really makes data recovery so much easier. We'll do that in future videos, but because we will need to have our license activated, because we are now using a free mode one. But if we want to do that, we'll need to have our pro version active. Now we'll do that later. So this is done. You can see 0 files were found. So if we go to our recovery USB 5 directory, nothing was actually recovered. Why? Because it has been securely deleted. But again, assuming you can, let's say, at least you need to find the names of the files, because maybe the names will be useful to you and their locations, and then you can probably find other related evidence that you could probably use. Then we can still use the journal to find what those files were, what the file names were, where were they located, and then use that for your investigation advantage. So let's go. I want to do one more thing finally, and so I'm going to remove all of this. I know we showed how to, I'm also going to remove this. I'm going to mount again. We can do USB 2 because it's really not going to matter. I'm just going to go show quickly how we can easily do this. Okay. How we can easily do this with manual carving. So doing manual carving is also possible. So let's say you don't have PhotoRec or you don't want to use it. And there are times, by the way, where you might need to do things manually. So, and we know we are targeting images. So what we could do is using 010 editor again. And we don't need to also just use 010 editor. I usually, if I have access to Xways, I would prefer Xways as well. Xways is another tool. And 001 editor is also, so probably I prefer actually both of them. But again, it really depends on you. I'm going to open the drive. And then now, because I know I'm looking for images, what I'm going to do is let's open Google Chrome and navigate to Gary Kessler's file signature table. Now, this is where you can see all of the the file extensions, their signatures, and so we can use this to our advantage. So let's say we want JPEG files. So we know JPEG files start with the hexadecimal FFD8, so with these hex bytes. So what we could do, or probably these is better even, there seems to be 2 different formats. So we could probably search for this, which might give us a better advantage. And you can see that the trailer is FFD9, which is great, by the way. So files that have a header and a trailer are much more easier to recover than a file that has just a header and no trailer. And again, we will make these cases more complicated as we move further with our video recording and scenarios that we want to cover. So in this case, what I'm going to do a search and make sure in here we are searching for hex bytes. And we can, if we are at the beginning, you can say search downwards, search upwards, or previous, next, So if we do next, we can see this is where we have what we have an image, or we have the bytes of an image started. So what we could do, we can now mark this as what, as our like our position. So we can see that. So copy position. Let me do this notepad. So because I want this, by the way, address. And now, again, since this is an image, a JPEG image, and we can see that these have a trailer. So let's go ahead and search for the trailer. Is this? So let's go ahead and search for the trailer. So from this location, if we search now for the trailer, and again, moving down, we can see this is probably where the file ends. So we can probably assume that this is where our file is. Like this is, we saw where the file starts, and now we saw where the file is ending. So what we could do is we can say, let's just make sure we copy the position as well. Where's our, okay. So what we could do is we can say select a range, and our range starts from this, okay, in decimal. Make sure you select that, and then to this. And now if we hit enter, we can see that I do anything correctly. Do it again. Change. So this is where we start. Oh yeah, we need to change this to start and end. So if we do that, now we have, probably, did I miss something? Let me just double check. The address. Oh, I know what we did, by the way. I'll explain this in a little. So this is where we start. And this, by the way, is the offset to our the 2 bytes that we were searching for. So what we need to do is add those 2 bytes, because that's sorry, this one. Need to add bytes because we want to search for, like, we want to select all of it, not just the. So we do this and H, and now we have the 2 bytes. Because, by the way, when we did just this position, this is going to give us at this point over here, which is where we found the 2 bytes that we were searching for. Now what we can do is copy as, say copy as hex, and we can let this finish. It's copying. You can see it's very slow. Not the ideal, by the way, method of doing things, but I just want to explain. I think it's a nice exercise to learn about, because there are sometimes you might need to do the hard way, which is like do it manually. And then what we can do now is create a new file, text file, and we can paste this. Okay, so we can paste this, and then what we can do is save it. So if I go ahead, save this recovery, and I'm just going to do recovery or image 1.apt. Okay, now if I go to recovery, go to image 1, we have our image. So you can apply the same method and do for the other images, by the way. Again, you just need to know where does it start and where does it end. And luckily for us, this image does have a file header and a footer. Now you might ask, but what if I have a file that has a header but no footer? That's where things get complicated, and it becomes like a trial and error kind of way, and a lot of different, like, there are statistical methods that do kind of try to recover files. There's a lot of different ways that could be used to recover files when that is the case. Now, let's think of a scenario. Okay, let's think of a scenario where we have a file. Okay, let me go to documents. So let's think of a scenario where we have file, not this type of file. Oh, I think I put it on the desktop. Where is the file here? Oh, I think so. If we go to custom, yeah. So let's think of this scenario. We have a file which we want to recover, and this file is using some custom, or let's say it's like the PhotoRec does not recognize. PhotoRec does not recognize it. What should I do in this case? Now, what we can do, and you might say, how do you know that PhotoRec is not going to recognize? Let's do this. So if you go to the directory where PhotoRec is installed, by the way, we can, let me open PowerShell here. Or CMD, it really doesn't. Okay, there is a tool called FIDentify .exe. So this one, and this can be used to check if a file is known to PhotoRec. So if we do this and give it the file, you can see that the file is unknown. Okay, the file, excuse me, the file is unknown. So, and let's say we want to write a signature for this file. So what we could do is open it with 010 editor. And again, I just created this fake file. And let's say this is the header of this file. So this is the header. We can see this is probably the header for this file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go copy it. We don't. I'm going to copy this, and we are going to create a file called photorec.sig. Okay, we are going to create a file called photorec, okay, .sig, and we are going to store this file within the user's home directory. So users, like the same user name, the user itself. So photorec.sig, and what we're going to do, so the signature in this case is C5W. Okay, then so the syntax is like this, by the way. It's the extension, and then the offset, and then the signature. Now we can use in the signature, we can use, so in this case, let's say the offset is 0, and we can use hexadecimal, but if you want to use like, let's say text headers, you can do that. But in my case, I'm going to use the hexadecimal, okay? And I'm going to now save this. And now if I go ahead and use this again, we can see that now PhotoRec was able to identify this as a file called C5W. So what this means now is if I'm going to use PhotoRec to recover files that have this extension and this format, by the way, then PhotoRec can now identify this file and can recover it for me. Okay, so in this case, PhotoRec can now recover this file for me because I've added it to the signatures. Again, all you need to do is create this PhotoRec, and this could be photorec.sig, and this could be, by the way, multiple signatures, so you all just every one of them on a single line. Now you might ask the question, what if I have a file which has a header and a trailer? Now in order to do that, you will need to do some development and do modifications to like the signature. So you'll need to do some compilation, and that's going to be a little bit more advanced from what we are doing today, but we'll leave that for a future video as well. on how to add our own signatures to PhotoRec and then compile PhotoRec to be used to use that new signature, which has like a header and a trailer or whatever. Okay, but for today, this is now good enough to explain the case. Again, what we have today, we covered PhotoRec, which is a great tool. It comes as part of the TestDisk suite. The TestDisk is used to recover or like to solve fix partitions and drives. We'll do that in later videos, so we'll kind of add more and more to come to the our videos and make them a little bit more complicated as we move forward. But for today, we covered 5 cases. Case number 1 was if the user went and just kind of shift deleted the file, can we do the recovery? The answer is yes. If we had a case where the user formatted the drive with the same file system, the answer, can we do, and if the question is, can we do data recovery or file recovery? The answer is still yes. If the volume was formatted with a different volume file system, can we do recovery? The answer is still probably yes. By the way, we saw that in today's scenario. Can we recover files if they were securely deleted? The answer is no. But if we have like the journal activated on an NTFS volume, can we at least find something that proves a file was there and it was deleted? The answer is yes. I'm going to leave that for you as an extra mile to do. But this is what we wanted to cover today. I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something. If you had any feedback, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them over. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, my name is Ali Hadi, and I hope to see you in future videos. Thank you and have a good day.